Welcome to the halfway dark.
The box that answered back. At 3 a.m, I wrote a question on the cardboard box sitting outside my apartment door. When I came back the next morning, someone had answered me in handwriting that wasn't mine. I wasn't supposed to even notice it. Just another night, climbing the stairs after closing my gas station shift, eyes blurred from caffeine and exhaustion. But there it was, a plain brown box sitting neatly against my door. No address, no tape, no return label, just cardboard. At first, I thought maybe a neighbor had left trash in the wrong spot. But something about the box felt deliberate, intentional. It wasn't dented or dirty, just waiting there. It was set perfectly in the middle of my welcome mat. So, half joking, I grabbed a Sharpie from my bag and scrawled across the top. Who left this here? Then I unlocked my door and tossed my bag inside. The next morning, when I opened the door, the handwriting had changed. In the same spot I'd written, there was a new message beneath my words. I did. The handwriting didn't match mine. It was neat, careful, almost familiar. I froze, barefoot in the hallway, staring at that single reply. I live alone. No one has a key. No one comes up these stairs. I would have heard something. But the box had answered me anyway, without anyone seeing. That was the first time. The second time was worse. I wrote another message before leaving for work. Why? When I came home hours later, the box said, "Because you asked." My hands shook when I read it. This time, the handwriting jolted me. Because it wasn't random. It looked almost identical to my ex's handwriting. My ex who died 3 years ago in a car accident, whose voice I still sometimes imagined on the phone. I told myself I was imagining it. Just sleep deprivation. A prank, maybe. But the box was sealed tight. No opening anywhere. No seam to check. So I kept testing it. Every night, I wrote something. Every morning, it answered. What's your name? You know me. Where are you? Inside. Inside what? This. That was when I stopped sleeping. At first, the answers were short, harmless, but they got personal, intimate, things no one could know. One night I asked, "What do you want from me?" When I came home, the reply was scrawled in rushed strokes. It said, "To finish the story you left unfinished. You never said goodbye." My stomach dropped. Because the night before my ex died, we fought. I hung up the phone. I never called back. I never said goodbye. I tried throwing the box in the dumpster behind the building. I heard the lid slam, walked away, and didn't look back. The next morning, it was back on my welcome mat. Fresh writing on top. Don't do that again? I shoved it into my trunk, drove miles out into the woods, and left it under a pile of brush. That night, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to a knock at my door. When I opened it, the box was there. The message said, "Why did you leave me in the dark?" My throat closed. My skin crawled. It didn't stop. The handwriting started changing. Sometimes it was my ex's. Sometimes it was my old teachers. Sometimes it was strangers. But then, it started looking like mine. I came home one morning and read words I didn't remember writing. "Tell me where you were the night he went missing." I dropped the Sharpie, because only one person knew where I was that night, and she wasn't alive anymore. I tried not writing anything at all, ignoring it, pretending the box didn't exist. But then it started asking me questions first. Words appeared without me writing them. Words that chilled me more than anything I'd seen before. Why do you lie to yourself? Why do you lock the door? Do you think walls will keep me out? The last one made me sick, because I hadn't left a Sharpie out that day. I hadn't given it anything to write with. Yet there the words were, scrawled cleanly across the cardboard surface, waiting for me. One night, desperate, I pressed my ear against the cardboard, just to prove to myself there was nothing inside. At first, silence. Then something whispered my name from the inside. I stumbled back so hard, I slammed into the wall. The box tipped slightly, but it never fell. I didn't sleep that night. I sat awake, staring at it from the couch, waiting for it to move again, listening for another whisper, for the scrape of a Sharpie in the dark. Finally, I broke. I grabbed a knife and cut into the box. Inside, there was no space, no hollow, just layers of cardboard, folded and pressed tight. Except lodged between them was a stack of paper, wedged deep inside. Dozens of small notes, every single one written in my handwriting, and every single one was something I'd never written. Confessions, apologies, regrets, dark thoughts I'd never admitted out loud. Every secret I buried, spelled out on paper. At the very bottom was a single note, fresh ink still wet, words that froze me in place. Don't look inside again. Next time, it will be you. I dropped the knife. My pulse hammered in my ears. Since that night, the box hasn't left. It's always there, waiting on my welcome mat when I come home. I don't write on it anymore. I don't look at it. But sometimes, I hear it moving in the dead of night. At 3 a.m, I'll wake to the sound of the Sharpie scratching across cardboard, even though I never left one out. And in the morning, new words are waiting for me. The last one said something different. It said, "You'll never stop reading." The night the hallways changed. The first time it happened, I thought I was dreaming. I came home from my night shift, took the elevator up to my floor, and the hallway looked wrong. Not just a little off, but subtly distorted, like someone had shifted reality while I was gone. The walls were the same color, the lights flickering the same, but the distance between doors had changed. One of my neighbor's doors was farther down than it should have been. I rubbed my eyes, checked the floor numbers, and nothing had moved. I tried to ignore it. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe my brain playing tricks. But as I walked toward my apartment, I noticed the faint hum of electricity was off. The light over my door flickered faster than the rest, like a heartbeat out of rhythm. Something moved in the corner of my eye, a shadow that didn't belong to anything. I spun around. Nothing, just the hallway, silent and impossibly still. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and the apartment felt normal, yet the feeling of wrongness clung to me like static. I woke the next night, thinking maybe I'd imagined it, but the hallway had changed again. The doors were rearranged differently, the carpet pattern subtly misaligned. I could trace the changes with my eyes, like a map that wasn't supposed to exist. I heard a whisper before I saw it, faint, behind the walls. Something calling my name in syllables I didn't know I recognized. My stomach tightened, my pulse quickened. I could no longer ignore that the building itself was alive in some impossible way. Over the next few nights, the pattern became obvious. The hallway didn't shift randomly. It shifted around me. When I turned left, it became longer. When I went right, it narrowed. And the more I moved, the more it changed, bending reality in ways I couldn't comprehend. I started leaving notes for myself. Hallway shorter than yesterday. Door closer than before. But every morning the notes were wrong or missing entirely. The building was mocking me, learning me, and I was powerless to stop it. One night, I swore I saw my neighbor's silhouette moving, but the door wasn't theirs. When I peeked through the peephole, the apartment was empty. A chill ran down my spine, and I realized the hallway was capable of creating its own illusions, or perhaps trapping echoes of the living. I began testing it, measuring the distance between doors, counting the tiles. Each time I returned, it was subtly altered. The hallway was alive, watching me, responding to my actions in real time. It seemed to feed off my fear and curiosity. A faint knocking started behind the walls. Not random, deliberate. 3 knocks, then 4, then a pause that felt like a heartbeat. I pressed my ear to the wall and felt the vibrations thrum against my chest, a rhythm designed to unnerve me further. The more I tried to understand it, the more impossible it became. Hallways don't change. Floors don't rearrange themselves. Yet every night, when the building was empty except for me, the hallway twisted itself into shapes that trapped me, confining me in angles and turns I had never navigated before. I stopped leaving my apartment. I stopped going anywhere. I even took the stairs just to avoid the elevator, hoping the path wouldn't warp so drastically. But the hallway didn't care. Every night, it reached closer, folding space around me like a predator that knew my every step. One night, I saw a door I had never noticed before at the very end of the hallway, slightly ajar. A dim light flickered inside, but I knew no apartment existed there. Curiosity overtook my fear, and I stepped toward it. Inside, a long corridor extended farther than physics allowed. Carpet that shouldn't exist, walls that could not possibly support the weight above, and at the end of it, a figure hunched over a box. I froze, every instinct screaming to turn back. The figure looked up. Its face was blurred, like static on an old television, and when it spoke, it used my voice. "You shouldn't have come here," it said. I stumbled back, heart hammering, and the figure vanished, leaving only the box behind. I opened the box. Inside was a single note written in my own handwriting. "The hallway never ends. It only begins again with you." My pulse rattled in my chest. I dropped the note and ran back to my apartment, locking every door. The hallway didn't stop shifting. Every night, shadows crawled along walls that should not exist. Whispers seeped from vents and behind walls, speaking in my own voice. I stopped trying to measure it, stopped trying to fight it. I simply walked, letting it guide me through twists and angles I could no longer predict. Every night, the corridor reached toward me, folding and stretching in impossible ways. I realized it was learning me, anticipating my movements, and I was trapped inside a building that had become aware, alive, and entirely malevolent. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see the hallway stretch, fold, and reach for me again. It waits for me to make a wrong turn, to hesitate, to falter. I know that no matter what I do, it will never let me leave completely. I remain in my apartment, watching from the window as shadows slither along hallways that cannot exist. The whispers continue, echoing through the floor and ceiling. I hear the footsteps of countless figures moving inside the walls, pacing, peering, waiting. And every night, when I hear the soft creak of a door, I know the hallway is learning, folding, and stretching itself again, waiting for me to take the next step. The hallway is alive, watching, learning, waiting, and I know that one day it will reach me completely and there will be no escape. The locked room above. I moved into the old apartment building, thinking the empty unit above mine was just unused space. I didn't expect it to be. Listening. The first night, I was woken by faint scratching above the ceiling. It sounded like nails against wood, slow and deliberate, as if someone or something was pacing back and forth. I shook it off, blaming rats or the building settling, but the sound returned each night, growing louder, sharper, more purposeful. At first, I tried to ignore it. I put on music, closed windows, even slept on the floor, but the scratching followed me. The pattern changed depending on where I lay, as though the room itself could sense my location. Then I began hearing footsteps. Heavy, dragging, pacing along a floor that shouldn't exist. I would sit up in the dark, heart hammering, straining to locate the sound. It always seemed to circle me, impossible to pin down. One evening, I decided to investigate. I climbed the creaking staircase to the locked door above my apartment. The door was old, warped, its keyhole covered in rust. I pressed my ear against it. The air was cold. I could hear breathing. Slow, measured, waiting. I ran back to my apartment and locked every door, windows, and vents. But the next night, the scratching returned, louder, closer. I felt it in the walls, in the floor, under the carpet, as if it were growing inside the building itself. I tried recording it. Nothing appeared on video, nothing on audio, but the sound was there, undeniable, twisting my perception of space and time. I could feel the room watching me, aware of my every movement. Over days, it escalated. The scratching evolved into tapping, thumping, then banging, all following a rhythm I could never mimic. The sound sometimes formed patterns, like messages I couldn't understand, yet my body reacted, frozen with dread each time it shifted. The locked door began to rattle, not occasionally, continuously. Each night, louder, harder. Sometimes the walls shivered with it. Once, I swore I saw faint light flickering beneath the cracks of the door, though the apartment above had no electricity. I tried asking neighbors, but they never heard anything. They said the apartment had been vacant for decades. Some whispered about a tenant who disappeared without a trace, rumored to have been obsessed with hidden spaces and strange rituals. The sounds grew worse. I felt tremors beneath my feet, a vibration that resonated through the walls and ceiling. The room above seemed alive, shifting in ways I couldn't comprehend. It responded to my fear, escalating in intensity whenever I tried to flee. One night, I saw the door slightly ajar. A sliver of blackness extended beyond the frame, impossibly deep. I could feel a pull, an unrelenting pressure, like the room wanted me to enter. I wanted to run, but curiosity rooted me in place. Inside, the hallway above was impossible, stretching further than reality should allow, folding back on itself. Shadows moved along its walls, whispering, pacing, waiting. At the far end, a small wooden box sat in the center, untouched and unremarkable, yet somehow sinister. I stepped closer. The box opened on its own, revealing a stack of notes. My own handwriting stared back at me. Messages I didn't remember writing. Confessions, regrets, thoughts I hadn't allowed myself to speak aloud. Every secret I buried, collected by the room above. A voice echoed from the darkness, barely audible. Words I recognized as mine, yet distorted. It whispered through the floorboards, along the walls, wrapping around me, chilling me to my core. I dropped the notes and ran back to my apartment. The door slammed shut behind me, though I hadn't touched it. I locked it and sat on the floor, trembling, trying to comprehend what I had seen. The scratching continued, the tapping, the banging. The door rattled again. The room above was alive, aware, feeding off my fear, storing my secrets, waiting for the moment I would enter again. I no longer leave my apartment after dark. I don't open the door to check. Yet every night, I hear the faint sound of footsteps, scratching, whispers, as if the space above me is breathing, moving, growing. Sometimes in my dreams, I see the door open fully. The hallway stretches beyond reality, and the box waits at the center. The notes are piled high, a collection of thoughts and confessions I haven't yet lived. I wake in cold sweat. The sound lingers. The door above rattles. The room watches. And I know that if I ever cross the threshold again, it will claim more than just my secrets. The apartment above is alive. It listens. It waits. It remembers. And one day, it will come for me entirely. The shadow in the ceiling. I moved into the apartment thinking the place was empty, but the moment I stepped inside, I felt it something living above me. A weight pressing down, a presence I couldn't see, but could feel crawling through the beams. The first night, I heard soft scratching coming from the ceiling. At first, I thought it was the building settling or rats, but the sound was too deliberate, too rhythmic, like fingers dragging across wood, circling, pacing, following some pattern I couldn't understand. I tried to ignore it. I put on music, even ran a fan, but the scratching always found a way through. It changed depending on where I sat, shifting closer, retreating, as if the ceiling itself was aware of my position. The second night, I heard whispers. Not muffled, not random words I could almost understand. My name repeated slowly, each syllable curling through the air. I froze in the dark, heart hammering, wondering if I'd finally lost my mind. I pressed my ear against the ceiling. The whispers ceased. A soft thump followed, echoing like a heartbeat, measured and cold. I felt it in the walls, in the floor beneath me. The apartment wasn't just old. It was alive. Days passed. The sounds grew more precise, forming rhythms I couldn't ignore. Sometimes it was tapping, sometimes scratching, always deliberate. I started leaving notes for myself, writing times, patterns, measurements, but every morning they were gone or scrawled over with handwriting I didn't recognize. One night, the ceiling groaned loudly, like something shifting in the beams. I saw the shadow of a dark shape moving just above the ceiling panels. I couldn't make it out, but it seemed to stretch, elongate, shift with my gaze. I tried recording the sounds. Nothing appeared. The cameras captured only the empty ceiling, static and silence. But I could feel it watching me, learning me, knowing where I would be next. I stopped sleeping. Every creak, every groan, every whisper set my nerves on fire. I felt trapped, caught inside a building that didn't obey the rules of reality, that bent around me with intent and patience. One evening, I found a ladder in the storage room. It led to a hatch above the ceiling panels. I climbed up, heart in my throat, hoping to confront the source. What I found was impossible. A long, narrow corridor above the ceiling, stretching farther than physics allowed. The corridor was lined with shadows, shapes moving just out of focus. At the end, a small wooden box sat alone, closed. The air around it was colder than anything I had ever felt. The box seemed to breathe, pulsing slightly, as though aware of my presence. I opened the box. Inside were dozens of notes, each in my handwriting, though I had never written them. Confessions, fears, things I'd never admitted even to myself, laid out in neat, perfect lines. My stomach turned. A voice echoed from the corridor above, soft but distinct. It spoke in my own voice, repeating things I had thought only in my head, twisting them into threats, warnings. I dropped the box and scrambled back to the hatch, sealing it behind me. As sounds didn't stop. Scratching, tapping, whispers, they became louder, more insistent. The ceiling itself seemed to breathe, pulsing, shifting. I could feel it pressing down, folding around me, aware of my every movement. I stopped leaving my apartment at night. I stopped going anywhere. I didn't open doors. I didn't answer knocks. But the shadow persisted. It moved, paced, whispered, learning me, shaping the space above and around me. Sometimes in the dark, I see the hatch glow faintly. The box reappears in my dreams, stacked with papers I didn't write, each one revealing something I've tried even from myself. I lie awake, listening to the ceiling shift and scrape, feeling eyes where none should be, knowing that it remembers me, records me, waits for me to falter. The apartment above me is alive. It watches. It listens. And I know, somehow, it will never stop until it has claimed everything I've hidden, every secret, every fear, every thought.